Hello, everyone. Welcome to Infinite Power and Love. My name's Rach. I'm a very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And we are in Two Wives. So we're on page 108. And so this is all around, step 12. And I'm going to read that step because I always find it helpful to people. I'm not sure if we have any newcomers on. But whenever I'm reading any of the literature with anyone, I always find it beneficial to go to the actual page where the steps are, so they know what we're reading. So it's on page 60. Step 12: having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And I always love showing newcomers as well this little visual, because I think it's, sorry, I'm going off a different book, so it's not marked in this one. One sec. Here we go. So I like to show as a visual the difference between the pages. So in this part of the book, we have 86 pages. Oh, sorry, 88 pages. And that's all of the steps combined. That's steps 1 to 11 in there. And then here we've got 76 pages. And that's all dedicated to step 12. So I just find that really mind blowing. And there's 12 pages difference, that they've dedicated all of these pages to how can we help the alcoholic and the people around the alcoholic as well. And yeah, so let me just go back to where we were. 108. Thank you for your patience. Hi, Dolores. Welcome. So we're on page 108. Great to see you. We're on page 108. We're into wives. It's a controversial chapter for a lot of people. It was written by Bill Wilson. Apparently, he asked Anne Smith to write it. She declined. Apparently, this is just what I've heard from various different book studies. Lois was annoyed that she didn't get asked, but maybe she would have revealed too much. So it's a controversial chapter, but I've heard lots of people say different things about it. You can apply this to sponsees, or it can apply to anyone, any of the partners. Obviously, it's not gender specific. And I find this chapter in general as a really good link to my step 8 and 9 amends process, because it really gives me a good insight into what it's like to be with an alcoholic or addict and the pain that they go through. So we'll start reading. We're starting on the 4 different types of husband or partner alcoholic. So 1, your husband may be only a heavy drinker. His drinking may be constant, or it may be heavy only on certain occasions. Perhaps he spends too much money for liquor. It may be slowing him up mentally and physically, but he does not see it. Sometimes he is a source of embarrassment to you and his friends. He is positive he can handle his liquor, that it does him no harm, that drinking is necessary in his business. He would probably be insulted if he were called an alcoholic. This world is full of people like him. Some will moderate or stop altogether, and some will not. Of those who keep on, a good number will become true alcoholics after a while. So this bit, I'm using a different book at the moment, but it just reminds me of page 21, where they define what the different drinkers are. And they talk about a moderate drinker, a hard drinker, and then they talk about the real alcoholic. So now we'll go to husband number 2. Your husband is showing a lack of control, for he is unable to stay on the water wagon even when he wants to. He often gets entirely out of hand when drinking. He admits this is true, but is positive that he will do better. He has begun to try, with or without your cooperation, various means of moderating or staying dry. So again, it's just making me think of page 30, where it talks about, you know, the insanity of my illness is that the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is that they can control and enjoy their drinking. And they talk about this illusion and delusion, and this persistence is astonishing, you know, trying to moderate, trying to control. Maybe he's beginning to lose his friends. His business may suffer somewhat. He is worried at times and is becoming aware that he cannot drink like other people. He sometimes drinks in the morning and through the day also, to hold his nervousness in check. He is remorseful after serious drinking bouts and tells you he wants to stop. But when he gets over the spree, he begins to think once more how he can drink moderately. Next time, we think this person is in danger. These are the earmarks of a real alcoholic. Perhaps he can still tend to business fairly well. He has by no means ruined everything. As we say among ourselves, he wants to stop. Okay, so you can see the progression, you know, and they're just trying to define for the partner how they can see, you know, what stage, what level their alcoholic is at. So level 3. This husband has gone much further than husband number 2. Though once like number 2, he became worse. His friends have slipped away, his home is near wreck, and he cannot hold a position. Maybe the doctor has been called in, and the weary round of sanitariums and hospitals has begun. He admits that he cannot drink like other people, but does not see why. So he just doesn't know about alcoholism. He clings to the notion that he will yet find a way to do so. He may have come to the point where he desperately wants to stop but cannot. His case presents additional questions which we shall try to answer for you. Here we go, some good news. You can be quite hopeful of a situation like this. So that's nice and reassuring. Hi, Elbel, good to see you. We're just on page 110. We're just into wives, talking about the different types of husband alcoholic or partner alcoholic. And here we go, we've got number 4. You may have a husband of whom you completely despair. He has been placed in one institution after another. He is violent or appears definitely insane when drunk. Sometimes he drinks on the way home from the hospital. Perhaps he has had delirium tremens. Doctors may shake their heads and advise you to have him committed. Maybe you have already been obliged to put him away. This picture, and here's some good news, this picture may not be as dark as it looks. Many of our husbands were just as far gone, yet they got well. So what, you know, what a lovely, reassuring promise that the spiritual tools, because I've been speaking with quite a few people recently who are in the madness but not picking up the tools, and it's just so sad. It's just so sad. And it's beautiful to read these promises about people getting well when we're willing, but you just can't make people be willing. Now let's go back to husband number 1. Oddly enough, he is often difficult to deal with. He enjoys drinking, It stirs his imagination. His friends feel closer over a highball. Perhaps you enjoy drinking with him yourself when he doesn't go too far. You have passed happy evenings together, chatting and drinking before your fire. Perhaps you both like parties which would be dull without liquor. We have enjoyed such evenings ourselves. We have had a good time. We know all about liquor as a social lubricant. Some, but not all of us, think it has its advantages when reasonably used. So the thing around this is that it's almost easier to handle an alcoholic when they've gone past, when there's no shadow of a doubt, that step one, that understanding fully that I've got this allergy. I understand from what Dr. Silkworth has said and the 4 chapters at the beginning. So we've got the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, more about alcoholism. There is a solution, and more about alcoholism. Those 4 chapters are really heavily ladled with my condition so that I can understand what my illness is. And then I'm going to grab hold of this thing like my life depends on it, because it does, you know. So the first principle of success, this is where it gets a bit controversial, is that you should never be angry. And it's like, bless Bill for saying that. But the tricky thing with this chapter is that even though that's such a statement and a half, and it also goes on to say, I can't remember exactly where, but it says, never tell him off, even if he's like not well behaved. But the thing is, being angry with an alcoholic doesn't work. So they're kind of telling the truth, even though it's completely unreasonable. And they're saying the first principle of success. So when the family starts to not do what you expect, because as an alcoholic, we just lie, we just wangle ourselves out of it. We know we're going to get into trouble. So actually, not being angry is a little bit more of a shocker, because it's like, oh, I thought you'd be having a go at me about whatever. So even though your husband becomes unbearable and you have to leave him temporarily, you should, if you can, go without rancor. Hi, Ryan, welcome. And rancor means like a long standing, I can't remember the exact definition, but it's like rancid, like a bitter, long standing resentment. Patience and good temper are most necessary. So in the Thursday book study, we highlight everything, and I've got more kind of notes and highlights in that book. That's why I'm going off this. And we've done this in orange as like the solution. Patience and good temper are most necessary when dealing with an alcoholic, because we know what happens when we get told off, or we just shut down, don't we? Our next thought is that you should never tell him what he must do about his drinking. If he gets the idea that you are a nag or a killjoy, your chance of accomplishing anything useful may be 0. He will use that as an excuse to drink more. So, when I said a bit earlier on that this bit really reminds me of like step 9, and how deeply and thoroughly I'm going to want to do my amends, because they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're not allowed to be angry. They have to be patient and good tempered, and they're never allowed to tell us what to do, because we might come across as a nag or a killjoy. And it's so harsh, isn't it? It's so painful to think that our loved ones have been stepping on eggshells. Oh, thank you, Hermione. Yeah, bitterness, long standing. That's it. Beautiful. Bitterness, or is it like rancid, like it's like rotting, it's been there for a long time, rotting. That's what it makes me think. So he will tell you he is misunderstood. This may lead to lonely evenings for you. Oh, I hate this bit. He may seek someone else to console him, not always another man. And again, we've just gone through these pages last week talking about, you know, the how the partners were called inhospitable, joy killers, nag, wet blanket, and the other women that they brought home, or they went off with the other women, other people, whatever. And again, the sad truth about this is that it's very common that happens, that loneliness. Where does it say it in the book? It's on page, I'm just going to lose my thread because I'm a bit flustered. One sec. I've lost my thread, but there was another bit about the other women. I'd read it the other day. I'm not gonna lose myself with it. Hi, Charlotte. We're just on page 111 into wives. So how sad and horrifying. He may seek someone else to console him, not always another man. Harsh, but true. Seek out sordid places. That wasn't the bit I was thinking of. My head is so flustered that I think it came in and then went straight away. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. So be determined that your husband's drinking is not going to spoil your relations with your children or your friends. It's a beautiful direction here, you know, because it does completely. And they told us this earlier on in the chapter, that what happens to our partners is they don't want to go out and they don't want to stay in, and that we ruin the time when we go out with them, but they can't invite anybody back because we ruin that time as well. So this is really good direction to families. Be determined that your husband's drinking is not going to spoil your relations with your children or your friends. They need your companionship and your help. It is possible to have a full and useful life though your husband continues to drink. And I don't know if we've got any Al-Anons in the room here with us, but that letting go with love. And I love thinking about the history of this, you know, people being driven to the house where all of these meetings, 50 to 200 persons would meet, and where Al-Anon started, and Lois making cups of tea for the wives, and again having that identification that they have, and then being able to work a 12-step program. And their step one is, I'm powerless over the alcoholic. My life has become unmanageable. Oh, somebody else said, was it about sordid places? I can't, do you know, it's gone in and out of my brain. We'll go with what both of you have suggested because it's a good place to take us to. So it is possible to have a full and useful life though your husband continues to drink, because we know that the Al-Anons become obsessed with the alcoholic. We know women who are unafraid, even happy under these conditions. Oh, that's a bit of a burner if you're really unhappy because the love of your life is drinking themselves to death. Do not set your heart on reforming your husband. So I've done a little cross-reference there to page 28 of the doctor's opinion. And I think, again, I'm using lots of different books, so it's a little bit confusing, but frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. Doesn't matter. It's so sad. It doesn't matter what they say to us. It's not going to work. If we are to find God, it has to come from within. I love that bit. Do not set your heart on reforming your husband. You may be unable to do so no matter how hard you try. What a waste of time and energy. to try and reform the alcoholic when they're unwilling and not ready. We know these suggestions are sometimes difficult to follow, but you will save many a heartbreak if you can succeed in observing them. And I love that because, again, like our program, Trusting the Process, this also feels like, because they start the beginning of this chapter saying, we just want to be helpful and we know that we've made loads of mistakes and we just don't want you to go through the same thing. So they're saying, like, you're going to save this heartbreak if you succeed in observing them. What is the observing them? It's following the clear-cut direction of how to deal with an alcoholic, not getting angry, not getting judgmental, not telling them what to do, but carrying on with your life, being purposeful and useful with your life. Because we know, don't we, that when we've got somebody trying to do their best for us and getting us out of different situations, it actually just enables us. We need to hit that rock bottom by ourselves before we are to start seeking. Your husband may come to appreciate your reasonableness and patience. This may lay the groundwork for a friendly talk about his alcoholic problem. Try to have him bring up the subject himself. Be sure you are not critical during such a discussion. Again, just thinking about, if we can just think about some of our actions when we're in the madness. And now Bill, pretending to be the wives, is saying, don't be critical. It's so hard. Can you imagine not being critical of our absurd, insane, horrific behavior, a lot of which I can't even remember? They see the truth, right? When we're staggering around or, trying to wee in the corner of the room in the middle of the night, or weird stuff that happens. Be sure you are not critical. What a big ask. Be sure you're not critical, such a discussion. Attempt instead to put yourself in his place. Let him see that you want to be helpful rather than critical. Which, again, I was just thinking of all the places in the big book where it says, we're not to criticize, we're not to criticize, we're not to criticize. This is to us, the alcoholic. It says it a lot of times throughout the book. There's a brilliant place on page 98. It says, we avoid argument and fault finding like the plague. And there's some other places in step 8 and 9. And yeah, there's quite a few places, actually. My brain is just a bit frazzled, I'm afraid. I can't bring to mind. Frida might be able to help me in a bit. His photographic memory. So attempt instead to put yourself in his place. Let him see that you want to be helpful rather than critical. And that beautiful word, I always emphasize this word because I never used to think about the word helpful or useful, but now it's changed in my head and I always think full of help, full of use, useful, full, helpful. And I also think of how empty I felt before, but now I feel full and purposeful and useful and helpful. And it's just such a simple word, but that little spin on it just really, it kind of breaks it down and just makes me think, oh yeah, that's what I'm here to do on this earth, to be full in general, full of life, full of help, full of love, and useful, helpful, yeah, rather than critical. When a discussion does arise, you might suggest that he read this book. I love that. I'm using this other book, which hasn't got all my cross references in it, but it says that I found 4 references in the big book that says, read this book. There's one in the doctor's opinion, and though he may remain to scoff, I hope he remains to pray. There's 4 references where it says very clearly, read this book. Now, we're obviously all big bookers because we're on a book study on a Friday, but isn't it shocking how many people are in recovery and don't read the book and don't study the book? And I think, well, I could personally, I couldn't remember, if I'm not constantly going through it with a sponsee, it goes in one ear and out the other. I have to always be in the book, for me personally, or at least the chapter on alcoholism. So again, where they really break down, what alcoholism is a lot in those chapters, and more about alcoholism is where they talk about the thinking. Oh, we're on page 112. We're on page 112, top of the page. So yeah, in more about alcoholism, they talk about the type of thinking that, you know, that that goes before a relapse, basically. They've got yeah, I'm distracted. Okay, so tell him you have been worried, though perhaps needlessly. You think he ought to know the subject better, as everyone should have a clear understanding of the risk he takes if he drinks too much. Show him you have confidence in his power to stop or moderate. So this is, in fact, it's like really clever how this direction is saying, don't be critical, don't be angry, say, do you know what you're faced with? Because I've actually found out this is alcoholism, and it's fatal, and it's chronic, and it's an illness. That approach is so much less judgy and effective. It's so effective, isn't it, compared to countless hours of hard shouldering and shutting down and, you know, big long lectures and stuff like that. And show him you have confidence in his power to stop. That's really empowering, isn't it? And just saying, I know that you can do it. I found some information. How about we try this? That helpful approach. You can always tell when someone's being really genuine, but if someone's being judgy, I can always tell that as well. Say you do not want to be a wet blanket, that you only want to take care of his health. Thus you may succeed in interesting him in alcoholism. So again, that kind of caring approach rather than, and it's a bit of a shocker, you know, the whole Al-Anon program, the Al-Anons that I know and the shares that I've heard in Al-Anon, they say the same thing as us, that they didn't realize their selfishness because they were like, your alcoholism is affecting me. How's it affecting me? Whereas this bit is like, actually, how can I be helpful and useful? And I care about your health. It's not just about, you know, what about me? He probably has several alcoholics among his own acquaintances. You might suggest that you both take an interest in them. So here we've got that element of step 12 of identification in step 1, and then sharing our message and trying to help people, and that being, you know, the keystone. That's how we stay well, is by focusing on other people and helping them. Drinkers like to help other drinkers. Your husband may be willing to talk to one of them. If this kind of approach does not catch your husband's interest, it may be best to drop the subject. But after a friendly talk, your husband will usually revive the topic himself. This may take patient waiting, but it will be worth it. Now, they already covered a couple of pages back. We read it last week. They covered that the husband might use it, or the partner might use this chapter as a way to beat you over the head and use it against you so that they can get away with whatever they want. And it says sometimes you might have to leave if your partner is not, you know, picking up the tools. So we're assuming at this stage that the partner really wants to make this work and be there for the alcoholic. So this may take patient waiting, but it will be worth it. Meanwhile, you might try to help the wife of another serious drinker. So here we go. We've got some more suggestions about service. How can I be helpful? How can I be useful? How can I get out of myself by helping someone else? If you act upon these principles, so action, your husband may stop or moderate. So if you think about the amount of time, because there's lots of references in the big book, isn't there, of how long our illness has gone on for. Years. A lot of us have been in it for years and years and years. So imagine the wife, partner, you know, family member now understands what alcoholism is and suddenly has a change of heart, starts focusing on their own life, focuses on the children and being useful, being helpful, and not nagging and not trying to change the alcoholic. Yeah, the alcoholic may stop or moderate because it's a bit of a different situation. Suppose, however, that your husband fits the description of number 2. The same principles which apply to husband number 1 should be practiced, but after his next binge, ask him if he would really like to get over his drinking for good. Question mark. Do not ask that he do it for you or anyone else. Just would he like to? And I love it in the big book when it always asks, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? It's all the way throughout the book. And I always ask sponsees all the way through up until step 12, because a lot of people that I've worked with, you know, when they come in desperate and the consequences are horrific, yeah, they're going to grab hold of it with all the desperation of a drowning person. But then as the weeks and months go on, you get to step 12 and there's not as, you know, there's not a greater wish or need or want to do it. The chances are he would. Show him your copy of this book and tell him what you have found out about alcoholism. Show him that as alcoholics, the writers of the book understand. I mean, aren't we so lucky now to have this identification all around the world? Before Zoom came out, maybe if we went to conventions, we'd be able to see and hear people from different places. But now we can just turn on our laptops, go to a different country, check out that message, that identification. People who understand. Tell him some of the interesting stories you have read. If you think he will be shy of a spiritual remedy, ask him to look at the chapter on alcoholism. So there we go again. They've directed us back to that chapter on alcoholism. And I love this, these two words put together, spiritual remedy. Remedy being like a healing, an ointment, a kind of homeopathic, natural, and a spiritual remedy. We've tapped into something really magic, you guys. Really, really magic. A spiritual remedy, spiritual healing. Then perhaps he will be interested enough to continue. If he is enthusiastic, your cooperation will mean a great deal. If he is lukewarm or thinks he is not an alcoholic, we suggest you leave him alone. That's sad, isn't it? it's so sad. I don't know if you've experienced this, but you know, those around us knowing before we knew. Imagine how long different people, different environments, maybe work colleagues and people from being young just going, you've got a problem. I was completely unaware. I've not got a problem. I'm fun. I like to party. I can just drink more than you. I'm Irish. Wow. But imagine that our loved ones, they're suggesting that they just leave us alone. How scary and sad that is for them when they're scared about our health. Avoid urging him to follow our program. We know that it just doesn't work, don't we? The seed has been planted in his mind. And I love that concept. A little tiny seed being planted. And this is what we do every time we do a bit of service, right? Every time we share back, we're planting a little seed. Every time we take a 12-step call. He knows that thousands of men, much like himself, have recovered. I was just thinking about the approach when we're new in and our 12-step work, and how sometimes it can come across as like pushy and like, yeah, you know, OTT, whereas when you kick back a little bit, you're just like, we have a solution. If you want it, come and get it. We'll share it with you. But if you don't want it, by all means, go have some more drinking fun. But we know it's not as easy for our loved ones, is it? You know, we're recovered now. We know that the solution works, but oh, I really feel for them. Reading this chapter really makes me feel for them. But don't remind him of this after he has been drinking, for he may be angry. So again, our poor loved ones have to step on eggshells. They can tell us 1 minute, but they have to be careful another minute in case we fly off the handle and, you know, blame them. Sooner or later, you are likely to find him reading the book once more. Wait until repeated stumbling convinces him that he must act. For the more you hurry him, the longer his recovery may be delayed. I've just got a little cross-reference here. Let me just check it. 48. Let's see, I'm on a different book. 48. Oh yeah, I like this. So wait until repeated stumbling convinces him he must act. I've put page 48, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines down, it says, in this respect, alcohol was the great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Yeah, I like that bit. I like that page. For the more you hurry him, the longer his recovery may be delayed. If you have a number 3 husband, you may be in luck. Being certain he wants to stop, you can go to him with this volume as joyfully, oh, I love this bit, as though you had struck oil. Excuse me. Struck oil, which is absolutely the truth, right? Like the prospector struck oil. That 129. Let me just 129. Yeah. 128. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels he has struck something better than gold. For a time he may try to hug the treasure to himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he mines it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. Love that bit. Love that bit. He may not share your enthusiasm, but he is practically sure to read the book, and he may go for the program at once. If he does not, you will probably not have long to wait. Again, you should not crowd him. Let him decide for himself. Cheerfully see him through more sprees. So, I mean, that is such a big ask, isn't it? Cheerfully see him through more sprees. But I like the tactfulness of this, because if you imagine how long the family members have tried all the different approaches, it tells us earlier on in the chapter, you know, it says we've even tried getting wasted with them, but unfortunately they liked it too, and the poor wives didn't even want to particularly get wasted, and they said, you know, they had what's that word, they had affairs as well, you know, retaliatory affairs and stuff. So now they're trying a different approach, and actually if our loved ones was enthusiastic, cheerful, not worried about you, just like, yeah, carry on, you know, I can't stop what you're doing. If you want to stop, I found this amazing book and there's loads of people who have got well, you know, and let them find their rock bottom. Talk about his condition or this book only when he raises the issue. In some cases, it may be better to let someone outside of the family present the book. They can urge action without arousing hostility. Again, that bit just makes me feel sorry for the partner. This stepping on eggshells, choosing their moments of when they can try to help us, and how my reaction, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I just completely blocked my family out. Didn't even want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to explain. I don't want you to see me. And it talks about you know, that it's harder for loved ones to get an honest answer out of us, because we don't know ourselves what the problem is. So your husband is otherwise a normal individual. If your husband is otherwise a normal individual, your chances are good at this stage. You would suppose that men in the fourth classification would be quite hopeless, but that is not so. Many of Alcoholics Anonymous were like that. Everybody had given up on them. Defeat seemed certain. Yet often such men had spectacular and powerful recoveries. Isn't that the truth? All of us here on this meeting today, Friday evening in the UK, and we're all on a book study, spectacular and powerful. Ooh, X111. Ooh, there's good cross-reference there, is there? Don't know how to get to it right now. X1111. Yeah, there are exceptions. Some men have been so impaired by alcohol that they cannot stop. Sometimes there are cases where alcoholism is complicated by other disorders. A good doctor or psychiatrist can tell you whether these complications are serious. In any event, try to have your husband, oh, here's another one, read this book. I love it. Those 3 words, so directional, so simple. Read this book. His reaction may be one of enthusiasm. I love that word as well. That word enthusiasm means to be inspired and possessed by God. Imagine that. And this is why, and I know a lot of your faces on here, and I know that you carry this message with enthusiasm, possessed and inspired by God. And that's what's so attractive about it, right? Yeah. And it's making me think about the Al-Anons who are just getting their power back because they're not giving it away to the alcoholic anymore. If he is already committed to an institution, but can convince you and your doctor that he means business, give him a chance to try our method. I like that it says method, and I like it when it says a design for living. This is just a formula. Aren't we lucky that the formula has just been written out? We just need to follow it. Unless your doctor thinks his mental condition too abnormal or dangerous. We make this recommendation with some confidence. For years, we have been working with alcoholics committed to institutions. Since this book was first published, AA has released thousands of alcoholics from asylums and hospitals of every kind. The majority have never returned. Ooh, this is a good line, isn't it? The power of God goes deep. I mean, just even all of us combined, could you imagine the stories, the experience we've had now that we've handed our will and our life over to the care of God? We can't even predict or assume what's going to happen. God's going to transform things. And this is really beautiful for the Al-Anon. You may have the reverse situation on your hands. Perhaps you have a husband who is at large, but should be committed, but who should be, yeah. Some men cannot or will not get over alcoholism. The cannot and the will not. Where it says on page 58, they're such unfortunates, but many do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So, again, we can't give people the will to do this. It's such a cunning, baffling, powerful illness. When they become too dangerous, we think the kind of thing is to lock them up. But of course, a good doctor should always be consulted. The wives and children of such men suffer horribly, but not more than the men themselves. I think that I always feel a bit weird at that statement. I'll be interested to hear what you guys think about that afterwards. Yeah, I think everyone suffers, don't they? But yeah, again, Bill did write this, so it's not exactly the wife that's writing it. But sometimes you must start life anew. We know women who have done it. If such women adopt a spiritual way of life, their road will be smoother. So there it is again. They're kind of guiding people that sometimes there's going to be no hope. It's such a shame. If your husband is a drinker, you probably worry over what other people are thinking, and you hate to meet your friends. This is all, I think I assumed this bit was ahead of where I've obviously got mixed up. You draw more and more into yourself, and you think everyone is talking about conditions at your home. You avoid the subject of drinking, even with your own parents. You do not know what to tell the children. When your husband is bad, you become a trembling recluse, wishing the telephone had never been invented. There it is. Sorry, I referred to that earlier, thinking that we'd already read it last week, but we hadn't. So again, this trap of our loved ones being completely pulled in, their lives being completely taken over by the madness of our lives. Whenever I read this chapter, I always feel very much like I want to go and work my living amends even more to those people closest to me, the people that saw the real, the real depths of alcoholism. They saw their loved one wasting away and dying in front of their eyes. We find that most of this embarrassment is unnecessary. While you need not discuss your husband at length, you can quietly let your friends know the nature of his illness. And I always stress this, because I just think it's brilliant, that it refers in the big book to what we have being an illness 14 times. That's just the word illness. There's lots of other references to it, but it only refers to disease once. And the word disease is on page 64, and it's aligned with resentment. And I just think that's so perfectly placed that they call it a disease when they're talking about resentment, but the rest of the book, they refer to what I have as an illness, which is a lot softer and a lot, if you think of the word disease, it kind of resembles like infection, like contagious, whereas illness is like, I've got a condition. I'm actually powerless over this condition. So that's really good quality guidance, isn't it? Like, don't hide from your friends. You don't need to, it says that it's unnecessary, that you can just quietly tell people that my partner's ill, but you must be on guard not to embarrass or harm your husband. So again, what we've got is like this criticism, and it's not going to do anyone any good. When you have carefully explained to such people that he is a sick person, you will have created a new atmosphere. Barriers which have sprung up between you and your friends will disappear with the growth of sympathetic understanding. You know, that shame of, the shame of not wanting anybody around you to know the things that the alcoholic does. It's so isolating, isn't it? But when we explain, we get a different perspective and understanding. You will no longer be self-conscious or feel that you must apologize as though your husband were a weak character. He may be anything but that. Your new courage, good nature, and lack of self-consciousness will do wonders for you socially. Beautiful. I love thinking about Lois actually, getting her life back and not being obsessed. I mean, none of us would probably be here without our Lois. And we've got a Lois on the meeting. What a good name you have. Standing by Bill through all of the trauma of being with an alcoholic. And thank God she did. The same principle applies in dealing with the children. Unless they actually need protection from their father, it is best not to take sides in any argument he has with them whilst drinking. Use your energies to promote a better understanding all around. So again, these chapters, to wives, to the family afterwards, to employers, they wrote this book to help everyone better understand the alcoholic. And because when people really do understand, we can again be more sympathetic and be more helpful and useful, less critical. Then that terrible tension which grips the home of every problem drinker will be lessened. Gosh, I can really identify with that bit. The terrible tension which grips the home. Before I turned into a full-blown alcoholic, my brother was an alcoholic. And I remember like not knowing, oh, bye Freedom, great to have you here with us. I remember not knowing when he was going to blow. That kind of volatile, you don't know if it's going to stay happy or you don't know when it's going to dip and just go terrible, like really terrible. Frequently, you have felt obliged to tell your husband's employers and his friends that he was sick when, as a matter of fact, he was tight. Avoid answering these inquiries as much as you can. Whenever possible, let your husband explain. That's about being accountable, isn't it? Letting the alcoholic face their actions, face what they've done, rather than covering it up, because it is just enabling. Your desire to protect him should not cause you to lie to people when they have the right to know where he is and what he's doing, because obviously that is going to cause resentment. The person's lying, we promise we're not going to do it again, then we do it again. Discuss this with him when he is sober and in good spirits. Ask him what you should do if he places you in such a position again, but be careful not to be resentful about the last time he did so. So again, just feeling really sorry for the Al-Anon, that they've covered our butts so many times, and then now we have to wait for a nice calm moment to say, what would you like me to do next time? Next time you're sick, and without being upset or angry. It's a big ask. There is another paralyzing fear. You may be afraid that your husband will lose his position. You are thinking of the disgrace and hard times which will befall you and the children. This experience may come to you, or you may have already had it several times. Should it happen again, regard it in a different light. Maybe it will prove a blessing. It may convince your husband he wants to stop drinking forever. And now you know that he can stop if he will. Time after time, this apparent calamity has been a boon for us, for it opened up a path which led to the discovery of God. How beautiful, the discovery of God. All of this pain, all of this trauma, all of the madness. We're the lucky ones. We've been saved. We have elsewhere remarked how much better life is when we lived on a spiritual plane. Oh, that's nearly my time. I'll just finish this paragraph. A spiritual plane, a spiritual way of life. Recently, a sponsee put in our little group, what does the fourth dimension mean? It's referred to it a couple of times. Catapulted into the fourth dimension in Bill's story, and then page 25, rocketed into the fourth dimension. And for me, that means tapping into living on a spiritual plane. It was there the whole time. I just needed to become aware of it. If God can solve the old age riddle of alcoholism, he can solve your problems too. We wives found that, like everybody else, we were afflicted with pride, here we go, self-pity, vanity, and all the other things which go to make up the self-centered person. And we were not above selfishness or dishonesty. As our husbands began to apply spiritual principles in their lives, we began to see the desirability of doing so too. So guys, I don't want to go over my time. Let me just put my little marker in my book. 116. I'll put it in the right book. 116. There we go. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much for being here and listening and being a part of the book study.